The dust storm on Verdun 7 was getting worse. Taman pulled his jacket tighter and squinted through the red haze that covered everything. He had been walking for 3 hours now, checking the mining equipment scattered across the crystalline forest. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The colony was small, just 47 people trying to make a living on this forgotten planet at the edge of known space. Taman had been here for 5 years now. After leaving the military, after losing his wife and daughter to a transport accident, he needed somewhere quiet. Somewhere far from Earth and all its memories. He kicked a rock and watched it bounce off a blue crystal tree. The trees here were strange, made of some mineral that grew like plants. They chimed softly when the wind blew through them. It was almost peaceful. That was when he heard it. A small sound barely audible over the wind. A whimper. Taman stopped walking. He listened carefully. There it was again, coming from behind a cluster of crystal formations to his left. He changed direction and climbed over the rocks. What he found made him freeze. An escape pod, or what was left of one, lay crumpled against a crystal tree. The metal was scorched black and the emergency hatch hung open. Someone had crashed here, and recently too. The metal was still warm. The whimpering sound came from inside. Taman approached slowly. His hand moved to the plasma cutter on his belt just in case. You never knew what might crawl out of a crashed ship. He had seen enough in his military days to be careful. He peered inside the pod. At first he saw nothing but shadows and twisted metal. Then something moved in the corner and 2 large eyes stared back at him. They glowed faintly in the darkness, golden and filled with fear. It was small, whatever it was. About the size of his hand, the creature pressed itself against the back of the pod, trying to make itself invisible. Its fur was matted and dirty, shifting through colors weakly, from gray to brown to a sickly green. Taman recognized the species immediately. His breath caught in his throat. A Keltharian. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Keltharians. They were apex predators, fierce warriors who had conquered dozens of star systems. Their empire was vast and powerful. An adult Keltharian could tear through steel with their claws and move faster than most species could see. They were beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, but this one was just a cub, and it was dying. Taman could see the creature's ribs through its thin fur. Its breathing was shallow and rapid. One of its small paws was bent at an odd angle, probably broken. Without help, it would be dead within hours. He should walk away. Every instinct told him to leave it here. Keltharians were dangerous, even the young ones. Their empire had no love for humans. If anyone found out he had helped one, there would be questions he could not answer. But then the cub made that sound again, that weak whimper, and Taman thought of his own daughter. He thought of how small she had been once, how she had needed him. He reached into the pod slowly. The cub tried to scramble away but was too weak. Its claws scratched uselessly against the metal. Taman wrapped his hands around its tiny body and lifted it out gently. The creature was even smaller than he had thought, barely 2 kilograms. It trembled in his hands, its heart beating so fast he could feel it through his gloves. Up close he could see details he had missed before. The fur was actually quite beautiful, meant to shimmer with iridescent colors, though malnutrition had dulled it. 4 legs, a long tail, a face that was somewhere between a cat and something more alien. And there, on the cub's right ear, was a mark, a tattoo in silver ink, elegant and complex. Taman's blood ran cold. He knew that symbol. Everyone did. It was the royal crest of the Keltharian Empress bloodline. This was not just any Keltharian cub. This was royalty. He looked back at the escape pod, really examined it this time. Blast marks on the outside, not from a crash, but from weapons fire. Someone had shot this pod down, and inside he could see 2 adult bodies, both dead, both wearing the armor of royal guards. Someone had tried to kill this cub. Someone had succeeded in killing everyone protecting it. Taman stood there in the dust storm, holding a creature that could bring death to his entire colony if anyone found out. The smart thing would be to put it back in the pod and walk away. Let nature take its course. He had enough problems without adding political intrigue from an alien empire. The cub opened its eyes again and looked at him. Those golden eyes held so much pain, so much confusion. It did not understand why it hurt, why it was alone, why the world had become so cruel. Taman made his decision. He tucked the cub inside his jacket, feeling its tiny body press against his chest. It was cold, far too cold. He turned and started walking back toward his homestead. taking the long route that avoided the main colony buildings. His homestead was isolated, built into a hillside 2 kilometers from the main settlement. He had chosen it because he wanted to be alone, and now he was grateful for that choice. No one would see him arrive with his secret cargo. Inside, he laid the cub on his workbench under a bright light. It barely moved now, its breathing even more shallow. Taman had been a military medic before becoming an engineer. He had treated dozens of species during his service. He could do this. He started with the basics. Warmth first. He wrapped the cub in a thermal blanket and turned up the heat in the room. Then fluids. He mixed a basic electrolyte solution and used a dropper to get small amounts into the cub's mouth. It swallowed reflexively, which was a good sign. The broken paw was next. He set it carefully and wrapped it in a splint made from plastic strips. The cub whimpered during this, but it was too weak to struggle. Hours passed. Taman worked steadily, checking vital signs, administering nutrients through an IV line he rigged up, monitoring the cub's temperature. Slowly, very slowly, it began to stabilize. By the time the artificial lights in his homestead dimmed to simulate night, the cub was sleeping peacefully. Its fur had started to show hints of its true colors, blues and purples and silvers swirling together. It looked almost magical. Taman sat down heavily in his chair, suddenly exhausted. What had he done? He was harboring a royal Keltharian, probably a wanted one at that. The political implications were enormous. If the wrong people found out, it could mean war. But as he looked at the small creature sleeping on his workbench, he could not bring himself to regret it. Something about this cub called to the part of him that had been dead for 5 years, the part that had been a father. He needed a name for it.
He could not just keep calling it the cub. He thought for a moment, then smiled slightly. Hana, he said softly.
Your name is Hana. You are the one who survived. The cub, Hana, slept on, unaware that her life had just changed forever. Unaware that this gruff human would become the most important person in her world. Unaware that together they would shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. Outside, the dust storm finally ended, and the stars came out. They were beautiful and cold and distant, filled with dangers neither Taman nor Hana could yet imagine. 6 months had changed everything. Taman stood at his workbench watching Hana sleep in the corner of his expanded workshop. She was no longer the tiny dying cub he had found in the crashed pod. Now she was the size of a large dog, all lean muscle and gleaming fur that shifted through colors like liquid metal. Even in sleep she looked dangerous. But when she dreamed, her paws twitched and she made small chirping sounds that reminded him she was still young. Still learning. Still his responsibility. The past 6 months had been the hardest of his life. Raising a Keltharian was nothing like raising a human child, though he had tried to treat her with the same care. She grew impossibly fast, eating everything he could provide. Her broken paw had healed within 3 weeks, much faster than it should have. Her strength increased daily. By the 2nd month, she could run faster than he could drive his utility vehicle. By the 3rd month, she had accidentally crushed a metal canister in her jaws while playing. By the 4th month, she had started hunting the small creatures that lived in the crystal forests. And Taman had watched in amazement as she took down prey 3 times her size with brutal efficiency. She was a predator. There was no escaping that truth, but she was also gentle with him. She followed him everywhere, her golden eyes always tracking his movements. When he sat down to work, she lay at his feet. When he cooked meals, she sat patiently waiting for scraps. She had started understanding his words too, responding to commands and even simple questions. Taman was not sure what that meant. Were Keltharians always this intelligent, or was Hana special? He had no way to know, and he certainly could not ask anyone. Keeping her secret had become increasingly difficult. He had expanded his homestead, adding underground chambers where Hana could move freely without being seen from above. He told the colony he was building a storm shelter. No one questioned it. No one cared what the weird hermit did with his time except G1. There was a knock on his door and Taman groaned. He glanced at Hana, who was already awake, ears perked up and alert. He made a hand signal he had taught her, and she silently disappeared into the underground chambers. Taman opened the door to find Jiwan standing there with her usual bright smile. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and the enthusiastic energy of someone who loved her job too much. As the colony's only xenobiologist, she spent most of her time studying the local ecosystem. Taman, I brought more data chips for your entertainment system, she said, holding up a bag. Figured you might be getting bored out here all alone. Thanks, he said, not opening the door wider. Just leave them there. I am busy with a repair job. Jiwon's smile did not fade, but her eyes became more focused. You have been busy a lot lately. Busy enough that you missed the last 3 community dinners. People are starting to talk. Let them talk. Taman. Her voice became serious. I am your friend. The only one you have on this rock. If something is wrong, you can tell me. He wanted to. The weight of the secret was crushing him. But he could not risk it. Could not risk Hana. Before he could respond, there was a sound from inside his homestead. A low, rumbling growl that definitely did not come from any machine. Jiwon's eyes went wide. What was that? Nothing. Just my air filtration system acting up. Another growl, louder this time. Hana had never made sounds like that before. Taman realized she was warning him about something. His hand went to the scanner on his belt and his blood went cold. 3 vehicles were approaching his homestead. Fast. Get inside, he told Jiwon, pulling her through the door. Now! Before she could protest, the vehicles arrived in a cloud of dust. 6 men got out, all wearing mismatched armor and carrying weapons. Pirates. The colony's worst nightmare. Verdun 7 was remote enough that official patrols rarely came by, which made it a target for raiders. They usually stuck to stealing supplies and leaving, but sometimes they got violent. Sometimes people died. The leader stepped forward, a tall man with scars covering half his face. We know this colony has ore stockpiles. We want them. Nobody has to get hurt if you cooperate. Taman kept his hand on his plasma cutter. The ore is in the main storage facility, not here. This is just my home. The scarred man smiled unpleasantly. Maybe. But we heard you live alone out here, away from everyone else. Makes me think you have got something worth hiding. The other pirates started spreading out, surrounding his homestead. Taman calculated his chances. Not good. Even with his military training, 6 armed men were too many. And if they got inside, they would find Hana. That could not happen, Jiwon, he said quietly. When I say run, you head for that cluster of crystal trees and do not look back. Are you insane? She whispered. They will kill you! Just trust me. But he did not get the chance to make his move. One of the pirates, a younger man who seemed nervous, accidentally fired his weapon. The energy bolt went wide, but it struck the wall of Taman's homestead, blowing a hole in the metal. And that was when everything went wrong. Hana exploded out of the underground chambers like a living missile. She was a blur of color and fury, moving faster than anyone could track. The young pirate who had fired did not even have time to scream before Hana's claws ripped through his armor like paper. The other pirates started shooting, but Hana was already gone, circling around them with impossible speed. She moved like water, like wind, like nothing Taman had ever seen. Her training in the crystal forests had prepared her for this. She was a hunter and these men were prey. Another pirate went down, his weapon flying from his hands. Then another. Hana did not kill them, Taman noticed. She could have easily, but instead she broke their weapons, broke their arms, broke their courage. The scarred leader tried to run back to his vehicle. Hana landed in front of him with a ground-shaking thud, and he stumbled backward, falling on his rear. She stood over him, easily twice his size now that she was in full aggressive posture, her fur blazing with warning colors, her teeth bared in a snarl that promised death. Hana, stop, Taman shouted. She froze. Her head turned toward him, those golden eyes questioning. He walked forward slowly, painfully aware that Jiwon was watching all of this, that his secret was completely exposed now. Let him go, Taman said softly. He learned his lesson. Hana growled one more time at the terrified pirate, then stepped back. The man scrambled to his vehicle and drove away so fast he nearly crashed into a crystal tree. The other pirates were already fleeing or unconscious. Silence fell over the homestead. Taman turned to look at Jiwon. Her face was pale, her eyes enormous. She stared at Hana, who was now sitting calmly beside Taman like nothing had happened. That is... Jiwon's voice cracked. That is a Keltharian? Yes, a royal Keltharian. I can see the marking on her ear. Yes, you have been hiding a royal Keltharian for 6 months. In your house. While the entire galaxy thinks the royal bloodline is extinct. Taman did not answer. There was nothing to say. Jiwan laughed suddenly, a slightly hysterical sound. Do you have any idea how much trouble you are in? How much trouble we are all in if anyone finds out? I know. The Keltharian Empire would destroy this colony just for being near her. The Galactic Confederacy would arrest everyone here for harboring illegal alien royalty. We would be famous for about 5 minutes before we all died horribly. I know that too. Jiwan stared at him, then at Hana, then back at him. Why? Why would you do something this stupid? Taemin knelt down and put his hand on Hana's head. She leaned into his touch, making that rumbling sound that was her version of a purr, because she needed help. Because I could not walk away. Because sometimes doing the right thing is stupid. The right thing, Jiwan repeated. She laughed again, then stopped. Her expression became serious. You know this cannot stay secret now. Those pirates saw her. They will talk. Word will spread, I know. So what are you going to do? Taemin looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear as Verdun 7 sunset. Somewhere up there, people were looking for Hana. People who wanted her dead and people who wanted to use her. Neither option was acceptable. I am going to protect her, he said simply. Whatever it takes. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed deeply. You are completely insane. You know that, right? Yes. Good, just wanted to make sure. She pulled out her data pad and started typing. I will send warnings to the Colony Council. Those pirates will definitely report what they saw. We probably have a few days before someone official shows up. Maybe a week if we are lucky. You are helping me? Jiwan smiled, though it looked a bit forced. Someone has to keep you alive, old man. Besides, I am a xenobiologist. Do you know how rare it is to see an Empress Keltharian up close? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. She paused, then added more seriously. Also, she saved our lives. I do not forget debts like that. Hana, as if understanding she was being discussed, made a happy chirping sound. Taemin felt something in his chest relax slightly. He was not alone in this anymore. But as he looked at Hana, at how large she had already grown, he knew the hardest parts were still coming. She would keep growing, keep getting stronger. Eventually, she would be too big to hide, too powerful to ignore. Eventually, the galaxy would come calling. He just hoped they would be ready when it did. The Keltharian warship appeared in orbit exactly 5 days after the pirate attack. Taemin had known it would come. The only surprise was that it had taken this long. Word traveled fast in the frontier regions, and a royal Keltharian was too valuable a prize to ignore. He stood outside his homestead, watching the massive ship block out the stars. Beside him, Hana growled low in her throat. She was bigger now, nearly the size of a small vehicle, and her instincts told her that ship meant danger. Easy, Taemin murmured, placing a hand on her shoulder. Let us see what they want first. Jiwan arrived in her utility vehicle, her face tight with worry. Behind her came several armed colonists, men and women who had decided to stand with Taemin. Not many, maybe 15 people total, but it meant something that they had come at all. The Colony Council voted to surrender you both, Jiwan said without preamble. They are terrified. Can't blame them, really. That ship up there could wipe us out in seconds, Taemin nodded. He had expected that too. And you? I told them what they could do with their vote. She checked her rifle, an old military model that had seen better days. You took care of her when no one else would. That means something. A transport ship descended from orbit, sleek and deadly looking. It landed in the open space in front of Taemin's homestead, and a boarding ramp extended with a hiss of hydraulics. Warriors emerged. Keltharian warriors, each one nearly 3 meters tall, covered in armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. They moved with lethal grace, weapons held ready but not aimed. Yet, there were 10 of them, which was probably more than enough to destroy the entire colony if they wanted to. Taemin counted exits and calculated odds. None of them were good. The last figure to emerge was different. Female, her armor decorated with rank insignia, and her face marked with long scars that ran from her forehead to her jaw. She carried herself like someone who had survived 1,000 battles and expected to survive 1,000 more. She stopped 10 meters away and studied Taemin with eyes that missed nothing. Then her gaze shifted to Hana, and something complicated passed across her scarred face. Surprise, relief, grief, all mixed together. I am Commander Daeon of the Keltharian Royal Guard, she said. Her voice was rough, like gravel scraping metal. I have come for Princess Hanara. Hana's growl intensified. She pressed against Taemin's leg, her claws digging into the hard ground. Her name is Hana, Taemin said calmly, though his heart hammered in his chest. And she stays with me. Daeon's eyes narrowed. You do not understand the situation, human. That is not just any cub. She is the last surviving member of the royal bloodline, the rightful empress of our people. I understand perfectly. Taemin did not move his hand from Hana's shoulder. I also understand that someone tried to kill her. Someone murdered her family and shot down the escape pod. I am guessing that someone is still looking for her. For a long moment, Daeon said nothing. The other warriors shifted uneasily, their hands tightening on their weapons. Then Daeon raised one hand and they relaxed slightly. You are correct, she said finally. 6 months ago, there was a coup. Regent Myungho seized power, claiming the royal family had become weak. He killed the empress, her consorts, and all their children, or so he thought. She looked at Hana again and pain flickered in her eyes. I was part of the guard that smuggled Princess Hanara away. We fought through Myungho's forces, got her into an escape pod. I watched my brothers and sisters die buying time for that pod to launch. We thought we had saved her. When we finally tracked the pod to this planet and found it empty, found the bodies of the last 2 guards, she stopped, her jaw tight. We thought she had died alone in the wilderness. She almost did, Taemin said quietly. Another few hours and she would have been gone. Daeon studied him with new intensity. You saved her life. Yes, you hid her from the galaxy. Kept her safe when you could have turned her in for a fortune. Yes. Why? It was such a simple question, but Taemin found it difficult to answer. How could he explain the decision he had made in that crashed pod? How could he put into words the feeling that had woken up inside him when he had held that dying cub? Because it was the right thing to do, he said finally. Because she was alone and scared and needed someone. Because I know what it is like to lose everything. Daeon was quiet for a moment. Then she did something Taemin did not expect. She bowed, a deep formal bow that spoke of respect and honor. The other warriors followed her lead. You have done more for our people than you can possibly know, Daeon said. Princess Hanara is our hope. With her alive, we can challenge Myungho's claim. We can restore the rightful rule. Good for you, Taemin said. But she is not going anywhere. The warriors tensed again. Daeon straightened, her expression hardening. Human, I understand you have formed an attachment to the princess. That is natural. But she has duties, responsibilities. Her people need her. Her people tried to kill her. Your regent Myungho is still in power, still hunting for her. If you take her now, you are just putting a target on her back. We can protect her, like you protected her family. The words came out harsher than Taemin intended, but he did not take them back. Daeon flinched as if struck. The other warriors growled, but she raised her hand again to silence them. Her scarred face was rigid with controlled anger. Careful, human. You speak of things you do not understand. I understand that Hana is safe here. I understand that she is happy. I understand that rushing her into some political war is a good way to get her killed. She is not Hana. She is Princess Hanara, heir to the throne of the Keltharian Empire. She is 7 months old. Taemin's voice rose despite his attempt to stay calm. She is a child. She needs time to grow, to learn, to become strong, not to be thrown into politics and warfare. They stared at each other, human and Keltharian, both unwilling to back down. The tension stretched like a wire ready to snap. And then Hana moved. She stepped forward, placing herself between Taemin and Daeon. Her head reached Daeon's chest now, and her eyes blazed with determination. She looked at the commander, then back at Taemin, then at Daeon again. Then she did something remarkable. She sat down, wrapped her tail around Taemin's legs, and made a very clear growling sound that needed no translation. No. Daeon stared at the cub, her expression shifting from anger to shock to something that might have been understanding. She chooses you, she said softly. She chooses the human over her own kind. I am her family, Taemin said simply. Family. Daeon repeated the word like she was tasting it. Keltharians do not usually bond with other species. We are too different. Our instincts too alien. But Empress bloodline cubs are special. They bond with their environment, adapt to it. If they grow up with warriors, they become warriors. If they grow up with scholars, they become scholars. She looked at Taemin with new eyes. She has bonded with you. You are her pack now. Breaking that bond would damage her, maybe permanently. Hope flared in Taemin's chest. So you will leave her with me? I did not say that. Daeon began pacing, thinking out loud. Myungho knows she survived. He has spies everywhere. The pirates who saw her will have reported to someone, and that information will reach him eventually. When it does, he will send assassins. Not a few warriors like us, but entire fleets. He cannot allow her to live. Then we hide better. There is nowhere in the galaxy you can hide from him. Daeon's frustration showed clearly now. He controls the entire Keltharian Empire. He has resources you cannot imagine. So what do you suggest? Daeon stopped pacing. She looked at Hana, at Taemin, at the small group of armed colonists who stood ready to fight for them. Her expression was calculating. A compromise, she said finally. Princess Hanara stays with you. You continue to raise her, train her, teach her, but you do not do it here. You come with us. You join the resistance. The resistance? Did you think I was the only loyalist who survived? Daeon smiled grimly. There are others, scattered across the frontier, hiding in the shadows, waiting for a chance to strike back. We need a leader. We need our princess. But if she's too young, then we wait. We prepare. We train her. She looked directly at Taemin. And you train her too. Teach her whatever it is that makes humans so stubborn and unpredictable. Teach her to think like you do. It might be exactly what she needs to defeat Myungho. Taemin considered the offer. Leave Verdun 7. Leave the quiet life he had built. Take Hana into danger and uncertainty. Everything in him wanted to refuse, to stay in his safe homestead where nobody bothered them. But Daeon was right. Myungho would come eventually. Hiding forever was not a real option. He looked down at Hana. She looked back up at him, trusting and loyal and young. So young, but growing every day. If I agree, he said slowly, I make the decisions about Hana's training, not you, not your resistance, me. Agreed. And if I think you are putting her in unnecessary danger, we leave. No arguments. Daeon hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. And Jiwon comes too. She is a xenobiologist. She can help make sure Hana grows up healthy. Fine. Anyone else you want to bring? Perhaps the whole colony? Taemin smiled slightly at her sarcasm. Just us three. He looked at Jiwon, who was watching the entire conversation with wide eyes. You do not have to come. Are you kidding? Jiwon laughed, though it sounded a bit shaky. Adventure across the galaxy with a royal Keltharian and a stubborn old soldier. How could I refuse? Taemin turned back to day 2 years could change everything. Taemin stood on the observation deck of the resistance ship Eternal Flame, watching another star system drift past. He was older now, gray threading through his dark hair, new lines carved into his face by stress and hard living. The comfortable life he had left behind on Verdun 7 felt like a dream from someone else's life. Behind him, he heard the sound that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. Heavy footsteps, each one making the deck plates vibrate slightly. Hana was coming. She was magnificent now, nearly 4 meters long from nose to tail, her body rippling with muscle beneath fur that gleamed like liquid starlight. Her colors shifted constantly, blues and purples and silvers responding to her moods and the light around her. She moved with deadly grace, every motion speaking of power barely contained. But when she saw Taemin, her fierce golden eyes softened. She made a low rumbling sound and pressed her massive head against his chest, nearly knocking him over despite bracing himself. Easy there, he said, scratching behind her ears where she liked it. You keep growing and you will not fit on this ship anymore. Hana made an amused snorting sound. She understood every word he said now. Sometimes Taemin thought she understood more than she let on, that she was far smarter than even Daeon realized. The door to the observation deck opened and Jiwon entered, carrying her ever-present data pad. She looked tired but excited, which meant she had discovered something interesting in her research. You need to see this, she said, pulling up a holographic display. I have been analyzing Hana's growth patterns against historical data on Keltharian royals. Look at this chart. Taemin studied the floating numbers and graphs. I see a lot of lines. Explain it to me like I am 5 years old, Jiwon laughed. Okay. Normal Keltharian cubs grow in predictable stages, but Empress bloodline cubs, the royal ones, they adapt based on their environment and who raises them. Hana has been growing faster and differently than any recorded royal in Keltharian history. Different how? She is bigger, stronger, but also more flexible in her thinking. Most Keltharians are incredible warriors, but they are very set in their ways. Traditional. Hana is not like that at all. She learns new tactics instantly, improvises, combines things no Keltharian would ever think to combine. That is because of Taemin, Diane said, entering the observation deck. The scarred commander had become almost friendly over the past 2 years, though she still maintained her warrior's wariness. He teaches her human strategies. Human ways of thinking, Taemin shrugged. I just teach her what I know. Military tactics, sure, but also other things. How to question orders. How to protect the weak. How to win without always using force? Exactly. Daeon moved to stand beside them, looking out at the stars. No Keltharian trainer would teach those things. We are raised to obey, to dominate, to show strength at all times. But Hana learns compassion from you. She learns mercy, and somehow it makes her more dangerous, not less. She turned to face Taemin directly. The resistance network is growing. Word has spread about Princess Hanara, about the cub who survived. Slaves in Myungho's empire are rebelling. Outer colonies are refusing to pay tribute. All because they have hope now. Hope is dangerous, Taemin said. Hope gets people killed. Hope is necessary, Daeon countered. Without it, we are already dead. An alarm suddenly blared through the ship. Red emergency lights began flashing. Daeon immediately activated her comm unit. Report, Commander, we have incoming ships, a voice crackled back. Unknown configuration, but heavily armed. 6 of them dropping out of hyperspace directly ahead. Battle stations. Daehan was already running for the bridge. Taemin and Jiwon followed, with Hana bounding alongside them. The bridge was organized chaos when they arrived. Crew members rushed to their positions, weapon systems coming online, shields powering up. On the main view screen, 6 dark ships hung in space like waiting predators. Identify them, Daeon ordered. Scanning now, the sensor officer replied. Configuration matches known bounty hunter guild vessels. They are hailing us, put them on screen. The view screen changed to show a face that Taemin instantly disliked. Avraxian, one of the insectoid species that dominated the bounty hunting profession. Its compound eyes glittered with greed. Resistance ship Eternal Flame, the Vraxian clicked in translated speech. We know you harbor the Keltharian royal cub. Surrender her and we will let the rest of you live. Regent Myungho has placed a bounty of 50 million credits on her alive. We intend to collect. Daeon's expression did not change. The princess is under my protection. Leave now and I will not destroy you. The Vraxian made a sound that might have been laughter. 1 resistance ship against 6 hunter vessels. Poor odds, Commander. But if you want to die defending her, we will be happy to oblige. The transmission cut off. Immediately, the 6 hunter ships began moving into attack formation. Evasive maneuvers, Daeon shouted. Target their weapon systems. The Eternal Flame lurched as engines fired, throwing them into a tight spiral. Energy bolts streaked past close enough that Taemin could see them on the view screen. Return fire lanced out from their own weapons, but the hunters were fast and well coordinated. This was not the first attack they had faced in 2 years. Myungho's bounty on Hana meant a constant stream of assassins, hunters, and mercenaries. Most attacks they had survived through clever tactics and Daeon's skill as a commander, but 6 ships at once was the largest force yet. Shields at 60%. Someone called out, Hull breach on deck 4. Fire control systems damaged. The reports came in rapid succession, each one worse than the last. They were losing. Taemin could see it in Daeon's eyes, in the way her hands tightened on the command console. Commander, Taemin said quietly, moving beside her. Let Hana fight. Absolutely not. She is not ready. She has been training for 2 years. She is faster and stronger than anyone on this ship. You know it and I know it. She is still too young. Another impact rocked the ship. Somewhere, an explosion echoed through the corridors. The lights flickered and stabilized. We are all going to die if we do not do something, Taemin said. He looked at Hana, who stood tense and ready, her claws scoring marks in the deck. She wants to fight. She wants to protect us. Let her. Daeon looked torn, duty warring with protectiveness. Then another explosion made the decision for her. Fine. But she follows my orders exactly. Taemin shook his head. She follows my orders. I trained her. For a moment he thought Daeon would refuse. Then she nodded sharply. Do what you have to do. Taemin turned to Hana and knelt down so they were eye to eye. Remember what I taught you about ship combat? Hana nodded, a very human gesture she had picked up from him. You go for their engines first, then their weapons. Move fast, do not let them track you, and Hana? He put his hand on her massive head. Do not take unnecessary risks. You come back to me. Understand? She rumbled an affirmative and nuzzled his hand once. Then she was moving, racing toward the airlock with purpose. Are you insane? Jiwon grabbed his arm. You are sending her out there alone? She is not alone, Taemin said, watching Hana's massive form disappear down the corridor. She has us, and she has everything I taught her. On the view screen, the airlock opened. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blur of color launched from the eternal flame into open space. Hana moved through the void like she was born to it. Keltharians could survive in vacuum for limited times, their biology far more resilient than humans. She used small thruster bursts from a harness they had designed, spinning and weaving between energy bolts like they were standing still. She reached the first hunter ship in seconds. Her claws tore into the engine housing, ripping through reinforced metal like cloth. The ship immediately lost power and began drifting. The other hunters tried to target her, but she was already gone, a shimmering streak of color against the blackness of space. Another ship. Another engine torn apart. She is incredible, breathed the sensor officer. Taemin watched with pride and terror mixed together. Every move Hana made was based on something he had taught her. Attack the weak points, keep moving, use the enemy's weapons against them. She was doing everything perfectly. But then one of the hunters got a lucky shot. The energy bolt caught Hana's rear leg, burning through fur and flesh. She tumbled in space, momentarily stunned. The hunter ships immediately focused on her position, preparing to fire a concentrated barrage that nothing could survive. No, Taemin shouted as if his voice could reach her across the void. But Hana did not need his voice. She recovered in an instant, rage replacing pain, and something changed in her. Her fur began blazing with colors they had never seen before, brilliant reds and golds. Her eyes burned like stars. She became something more than herself. The next hunter ship she hit simply exploded. Not disabled. Destroyed. Her claws tore through its hull into the core reactor, and the entire vessel became a brief new sun. The remaining hunters tried to flee. They did not make it. Hana was everywhere at once, unstoppable, undeniable. Within minutes, all 6 hunter ships were floating debris. Only then did she return to the eternal flame, pulling herself back through the airlock. When she emerged onto the bridge, everyone stepped back instinctively. The medical scanner beeped steadily, and Taemin tried not to look at the results displayed on its screen. He already knew what it would say. He had known for months now, even before Jiwon had insisted on running the tests. You should have told me sooner, Jiwon said quietly, studying the data with a doctor's clinical eye. Her voice was tight with emotion she was trying to suppress. This disease is advanced. Very advanced. What difference would it have made? Taemin asked. He sat on the medical bay's examination table, feeling older than his 53 years. The constant stress, the poor sleep, the injuries from dozens of battles had all taken their toll. But this was different. This was not something that could be fixed. I could have treated it earlier. There are therapies, medications that could have slowed it down. Could have slowed, not stopped. Taemin looked at her directly. How long? Jiwon hesitated, then sighed. 6 months. Maybe 8 if you rest, if you stop pushing yourself so hard. And if I do not rest? Taemin, how long, Jiwon? 3 months. Maybe 4. Her voice cracked slightly. You are dying, you stubborn old fool? Do you understand that? Actually dying. Not as a metaphor, not as a maybe. Your body is breaking down and I cannot stop it. Taemin nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. The pain had been getting worse, his energy fading faster. Some mornings it took all his strength just to get out of bed. Does Hana know? He asked. I do not think so. But she is smart. She might sense something is wrong. As if summoned by her name, the door to the medical bay slid open and Hana entered. She was fully grown now, massive and magnificent, her fur gleaming with health and power. She had become everything the legends said Empress Keltharians could be. And more. She took one look at Taemin sitting on the examination table, at Jiwon's worried expression, and her ears flattened against her head. A low, worried sound rumbled from her chest. I am fine, Taemin said automatically. Hana made a sharp, disagreeing sound. She moved closer, her golden eyes studying him with intelligence that still sometimes surprised him. She could read him better than anyone, could sense when he was in pain or troubled or lying. She knew something was wrong. Taemin reached out and put his hand on her head. scratching in the spot that always calmed her. Really, I am okay. Hana did not look convinced, but she pressed against him gently, carefully, aware of her strength and his fragility. She had become so gentle with him over the years, even as she had become a terror to their enemies. The door opened again and Dion entered, followed by Minho, the disgraced general who had joined their cause a year ago. Minho was older for a Keltharian, his fur graying at the edges, but his mind was sharp as ever. He had become invaluable as a military strategist. "We need to talk," Dion said. Her tone meant it was important. They moved to the strategy room, where a large holographic display showed the Keltharian home system. At its center was the throne world, heavily defended and nearly impregnable. "The resistance is ready," Minho said without preamble. "We have 47 ships, trained crews, and support from 6 allied species who hate Myung-ho's regime. The slave rebellions have weakened his internal security. If we are going to strike, now is the time." "The throne world," Taemin said, studying the display. "You want to take the capital?" "It is the only way," Dion agreed. "Myung-ho's power comes from controlling the throne. If we take it, his empire collapses. Princess Hanara can claim her rightful place." Taemin looked at Hana, who was studying the hologram with intense focus. She had sat in on hundreds of these strategy sessions over the years, learning, absorbing, understanding warfare at a level that matched the best generals. "The defenses are massive," he pointed out. "Orbital weapons platforms, shield generators, garrison fleets. Even with surprise on our side, we would lose half our ships just breaking through." "I know the cost," Minho said grimly. "But if we do nothing, Myung-ho consolidates his power forever. The rebellions will be crushed. Everyone who believed in Princess Hanara will die. There has to be another way. Some trick, some tactic we have not considered." They spent hours debating options, running simulations, calculating odds. None of them were good. Any attack on the throne world would be bloody, desperate, and likely suicidal. Finally exhausted, they broke for the night. Taemin returned to his quarters, his body aching from sitting so long. The pain was constant now, a reminder of borrowed time running out. He was preparing for sleep when Hana pushed her way into his quarters. She had her own space on the ship, large enough for her massive body, but she often came to visit him like this. Some habits from her cub days had never faded. She lay down beside his bed, watching him with those intelligent eyes. Taemin sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her. "You know, do you not?" he said softly. "About what is happening to me." Hana made a soft, sad sound. "I am sorry. I wanted to keep it from you. Did not want you to worry, but you always could see through me." He reached out and touched her head. "I am dying, Hana. The doctors cannot fix it. I have maybe a few months left." Hana's expression shifted through emotions too complex for Taemin to fully read. Grief, anger, denial. She pushed her head against his hand harder, as if her touch could heal him. "I need you to listen to me," Taemin continued. "When I am gone, you cannot give up. You cannot let my death stop you from doing what needs to be done." Hana pulled back and made a sharp, rejecting sound. Her colors flickered with distress. I know you do not want to think about it, but we have to be practical." He smiled sadly. "I taught you that, remember? Always plan for the worst." He stood despite the pain and moved to the window that showed the stars beyond. "I have been thinking about the throne world problem, about how to take it without losing everything." Hana moved beside him, waiting. "There is a way, a solution, but it requires me." Taemin looked at her. "I can pilot a strike team to the surface, disable the shield generators from the inside, give our fleet a clear shot, but it is a one-way mission. No extraction, no escape. Whoever goes is not coming back." Hana's reaction was immediate and violent. She reared up, her massive form filling the room, her growl shaking the walls. "No, absolutely not, never. It is the only way that works. I ran the numbers with Minho. If we try a direct assault, we lose 70% of our ships and probably still fail. But if someone gets inside, if they disable those shields, we can win with minimal casualties. Thousands of lives saved." Hana did not care about the numbers. She pushed him back against the wall, not hard enough to hurt but enough to trap him, and stared into his eyes with an intensity that took his breath away. She made a long, complex series of sounds that Taemin had learned to interpret over the years. She was saying, "You do not get to die for me. I do not allow it. Find another way. There is no other way. Then we do not attack. We run, we hide, we live quietly somewhere far away, and let Myung-ho win. Let all those people who believed in you die for nothing. Better them than you. Taman felt his chest tighten with emotion. That is not true, and you know it. You care about them. I taught you to care about them. About the weak, the oppressed, the ones who cannot fight for themselves. Hana made a desperate, angry sound. She was crying, he realized. The fierce galactic beast, terror of Myung-ho's fleets, was crying like the cub he had found years ago in that crashed pod. He reached up and touched her face, feeling the wetness there. I'm so proud of you. You have become more than I ever dreamed. Strong and fierce and powerful, yes, but also kind, compassionate, a true leader. She shook her head violently. Listen to me, please. Taman's voice was gentle but firm. I am dying anyway. In 3 months, maybe 4, I will be gone. I can either die in bed useless, or I can die doing something that matters. I can die saving lives. I can die making sure you win. But I need you. The meaning was clear in her eyes, in every line of her body. No. Taman smiled through his own tears now. You do not need me anymore. You have not needed me for a long time. You just want me around, and that is different. That is love, not necessity. He pulled her head down so they were touching, forehead to forehead, the way they had done since she was small. You are going to be Empress. You are going to rule the Keltharian Empire. You are going to change the galaxy. And when you do, when you make things better, I will be there in everything you learned. In every decision you make, in every life you save. They stayed like that for a long time, the old dying human and the young Empress sharing their grief. Finally, Hana pulled back. Her eyes were still wet, but they held a new determination. She made a sound that was both acceptance and promise. She would do as he asked. She would take the throne. She would make his sacrifice mean something, but she did not have to like it. I know, Taman said. I do not like it either. But this is how we win. This is how we make sure all those people who died protecting you did not die for nothing. Over the next 2 weeks, they planned the assault. Taman would lead a small team through Myung-ho's defenses using a captured enemy ship. They would land near the shield generator facility, fight their way inside, and disable the shields. It would take approximately 14 minutes from landing to shield failure. 14 minutes for Taman to change the course of galactic history. On the night before the attack, there was a ceremony. The resistance had grown far beyond the small crew of the Eternal Flame.